And here we are seeing the unusual circumstance of perhaps someone having pulled the trigger.
When it was commissioned in 1995, the Russian nuclear submarine K-141 Kursk was one of the most powerful weapons in the world. At 154 meters long, the size of 2 jumbo jets placed end to end, it was a titan of the deep. An Oscar II-class cruise missile submarine, armed with 24 Granite anti-ship missiles. Designed to hunt American aircraft carriers, built to withstand depths of 500 meters and equipped with a double hull, strong enough to survive almost any damage. The Kursk was considered indestructible, a predator lurking beneath the waves, Russia's pride. In August 2000, during a routine naval exercise in the Barents Sea, the Kursk became something else entirely. A steel coffin lying on the ocean floor. 118 men trapped inside with no way to escape. How does an unsinkable submarine just disappear? This is the story of the Kursk and the catastrophic failure that the Russian government tried desperately to hide.
Tell me, what happened with the submarine?
Она утонула.
The Kursk wasn't just any submarine. Project 949A, NATO codename Oscar II, represented the peak of Soviet submarine engineering. Commissioned in January 1995, it was one of the largest cruise missile submarines in the world, 24,000 tons when submerged, powered by 2 nuclear reactors that could propel it at speeds exceeding 30 knots. Its mission was simple but terrifying: slip past NATO defenses and destroy American carrier battle groups with salvos of supersonic cruise missiles. Each of its 24 Granite missiles carried a 750-kilogram warhead and could strike targets over 300 miles away. The double-hull design made it extraordinarily resilient. The outer hull could withstand tremendous pressure and damage while protecting the inner pressure hull where the crew lived and worked. It was built to survive depths of 500 meters, deeper than most submarines could dive. Russian submariners called vessels like the Kursk carrier killers. In war, a single Oscar II submarine was expected to sink an entire American aircraft carrier battle group. The submarine's motto, painted near its emblem, read, "The Kursk will complete any task in battle." The crew of 118 included some of Russia's most experienced submariners, officers who had trained for years at Russia's elite naval academies, young sailors on their first major deployment, petty officers who had served on submarines for decades. Many came from Vidyayevo, the closed military town on the Kola Peninsula where the submarine was based. They had families, wives, children, parents, waiting for their return. Among them was Captain Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov, 27 years old, the submarine's weapons officer. He'd married his wife Olga less than 2 years earlier. They were building their life together. He had dreams beyond the Navy. Captain Gennady Lyachin commanded the Kursk. At 45, he was an experienced submariner who'd spent his entire career in the Northern Fleet. His crew respected him. In August 2000, the Kursk deployed to the Barents Sea as part of a major naval exercise. The largest Russia had conducted since the collapse of the Soviet Union. Multiple submarines and surface vessels would participate in war games designed to demonstrate that despite economic struggles and military budget cuts, the Russian Navy remained a formidable fighting force. The Kursk's role was to conduct practice attacks against surface targets. Everything seemed normal. The crew was confident, well-trained, professional. Nothing suggested that within days, the Kursk would become Russia's worst submarine disaster. August 12, 2000, morning, the Barents Sea. The weather is typical for August in these waters. The Kursk submerges shortly after dawn. The submarine cruises at 108 meters depth, running through standard procedures. The crew performs their duties with practiced efficiency. At 11:28 a.m., the Kursk is scheduled to launch practice attacks. The Peter the Great, a nuclear-powered cruiser serving as the exercise flagship, monitors the operation from the surface. Officers track the Kursk's position, waiting for the practice launches. 11:28 comes and goes. No launch confirmation. Officers on the Peter the Great wait. Perhaps a minor delay, nothing unusual. 11:30 a.m. arrives. Still nothing from the Kursk. The cruiser's radio operator attempts contact. No response. They try again. Silence. At 11:30 and 42 seconds, seismic monitoring stations across northern Europe detect unusual activity in the Barents Sea. 2 distinct seismic events. The second is massive, equivalent to a 3.5 magnitude earthquake. On the Peter the Great, officers are still trying to contact the Kursk. The submarine has gone completely dark. An hour passes, then another. By early afternoon, it's clear something is seriously wrong. The Kursk has stopped responding to all communications. The submarine has disappeared. Within hours, Russian Navy commanders understand that something terrible has happened. The Kursk is on the bottom. It's not responding, and no one knows the condition of the crew. By evening on August 12th, rescue ships are moving toward the Kursk's last known position. The weather is deteriorating, strong winds and rough seas. The Russian military has rescue equipment, submersibles designed to dock with disabled submarines and evacuate survivors. But this equipment is old, poorly maintained. Budget cuts have meant minimal training. On Sunday, August 13th, the first rescue attempt is made. The AS-34, a Priz-class rescue vehicle, descends to the Kursk. Its mission is to dock with the submarine's rear escape hatch and allow survivors to climb aboard. But when the AS-34 reaches the Kursk, problems arise immediately. The submarine is sitting at an angle on the seabed. The escape hatch appears damaged. The AS-34 attempts to attach. The seal won't hold. After several hours, the rescue subsurfaces, having accomplished nothing. Monday brings another attempt. Tuesday, a second rescue submersible is deployed. Each attempt fails. Officials hold press conferences in Moscow, assuring families that rescue operations are progressing. But privately, Navy commanders are panicking.
It is poignant to think that as they were dying, there in the 9th compartment, their families ashore were being comprehensively lied to by the admirals that those 23 men were serving.
The equipment keeps failing. Time is running out. As days pass, the Russian government faces mounting pressure to explain what happened. The military offers an explanation to the desperate families in Vidyayevo. The Kursk likely collided with a foreign submarine, probably NATO, perhaps American. The story spreads through official channels and state media. The Kursk was struck by another vessel during the exercise. It wasn't Russia's fault. It was an accident caused by foreign interference. Families are told to wait. The situation is complicated. International tensions are involved. Rescue is ongoing. But the truth is far simpler and far more devastating than anyone is being told. Refusing help. By Monday, August 14th, international offers of assistance arrive. The British Royal Navy has modern submarine rescue equipment. Norway has advanced diving capabilities and ships stationed nearby. The United States offers help. Russia refuses them all. President Vladimir Putin, newly elected just months earlier, is on vacation at a resort in Sochi. He's been briefed, but hasn't returned to Moscow. National pride, military secrecy, reluctance to admit that Russian capabilities are inadequate. Allowing foreign military personnel access to one of Russia's most advanced submarines raises security concerns. The offers are declined. Russian crews continue with equipment that keeps failing. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Days pass. In Vidyayevo, families gather at the naval base, demanding information. Officials provide reassurances but few details. Rumors spread that crew members might still be alive. Hope persists, but anxiety grows. Accepting help. Too late. By Saturday, August 19th, 1 week after the disaster, international pressure forces Russia to accept foreign assistance. Norwegian divers mobilize immediately. Despite terrible weather, they work to reach the submarine. On Monday, August 21st, the Norwegian team accesses the Kursk's escape hatch. They find it damaged beyond use, warped metal, impossible to open. The divers cut through the outer hull. When they enter, they find what they've feared. All 118 crew members are dead. They find evidence of 23 men in compartment 9, the rearmost section. These men survived whatever happened in the forward section. They sealed themselves behind watertight doors. But they didn't survive long enough for rescue to arrive. The divers report their findings. The submarine is a tomb. There's nothing more they can do. The recovery of the bodies will have to wait for a larger operation. The families rage. In Vidyayevo, families have spent 9 days in agony. When the announcement comes that everyone is dead, that rescue failed, that foreign help was refused, that they were lied to about NATO, their grief explodes into fury. A meeting is held between families and government officials. Deputy Prime Minister Ilya Klebanov attempts to explain. One mother, Nadezhda Tilik, mother of crew member Sergei Tilik, stands and confronts them. She shouts questions about the lies, about why help was refused, why promises were broken. Security personnel move toward her. A female medic approaches with a syringe and forcibly sedates her. Tilik collapses and is carried unconscious from the room. The incident is captured by television cameras and broadcast worldwide. President Putin, who returned from vacation on August 16th, meets with families. He tells them frankly, "She sank." The bluntness is meant to convey honesty. It's received as callousness.
If you go to the Russian military and say, tell me exactly what happened with your nuclear submarine, then they'll just blank you.
In the months that follow, Russian and international experts work to answer the question, what really happened? The Kursk must be accessed properly. Bodies must be recovered. Evidence must be gathered. In late October 2000, Russian divers return to the wreck with better equipment. They work carefully to access compartment 9 and recover the bodies of the 23 men who survived the initial disaster. Among them is Captain Lieutenant Dmitry Kolesnikov. In his pocket, they find a note, handwritten, dated August 12, 2000. It's 13:15. All personnel from Sections 6, 7, and 8 have moved to Section 9. There are 23 people here. We made this decision as a result of the accident. None of us can get to the surface. He continues writing, updating the time. 13:34. I'm writing blind. And then a final message to his wife. Musia, I love you. Don't suffer too much. My regards to GV. The note devastates everyone who reads it. These men waited in the darkness, documenting their situation, hoping for rescue that never came in time. Forensic analysis indicates the 23 survivors died on Saturday, August 12th, within hours of the catastrophe. Carbon monoxide poisoning from a fire, hypothermia from the freezing water seeping in. They were already gone before the first rescue attempt reached the Kursk on Sunday. With the bodies recovered and evidence in hand, our investigators can finally piece together the full picture of what happened. But the Kursk itself is too valuable to leave on the ocean floor. In October 2001, a full year later, an unprecedented salvage operation begins. The Dutch company Mammoet coordinates the effort. Divers cut away the destroyed bow section and leave it on the seabed, too damaged and too radioactive. The remaining sections are lifted. Finally, the Kursk's rear section breaks the surface and is transported to a dry dock in Murmansk. Investigators access the interior compartments that couldn't be reached before. They examine the wreckage. They analyze the damage patterns. They study what remains of the forward sections. And the truth emerges. There was no NATO submarine, no collision, no foreign interference. The disaster was caused by Russia's own equipment. The investigation reveals that at 11:28 a.m. on August 12, 2000, the crew was preparing to load a practice weapon into a launch tube. Something went catastrophically wrong. At 11:28 and 30 seconds, the first explosion occurred in the torpedo room. Fire erupted.
В этом ограниченном пространстве. Не подводной лодки, а самого торпеды. А раз так, давление повышается, то, наверное, будет разгерметизация, вот.
Everyone in the forward compartments was killed instantly. Automatic watertight doors slammed shut. At 11:30 and 45 seconds, a second massive explosion detonated. Multiple warheads exploded simultaneously in a chain reaction.
Аварийную тревогу на корабле объявили.
The blast, equivalent to 2 to 7 tons of TNT, completely destroyed the Kursk's bow. The submarine's hull cracked open. Water flooded in. The Kursk dropped to the seabed. Of the 118 men aboard, 95 died within minutes. The 23 men in the rear compartment survived and sealed themselves in compartment 9. But a fire broke out. Carbon monoxide filled their space. They died hours later, before rescue could arrive. But what caused the initial explosion? The answer lies in a weapon that should have been retired years earlier. The Type 65 to 76A torpedo. A massive weapon designed in the 1960s, 650 millimeters in diameter, weighing nearly 3 tons, capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. These torpedoes were powered by a propulsion system using hydrogen peroxide as oxidizer, HTP fuel, highly effective but extraordinarily dangerous. Hydrogen peroxide is chemically unstable. When contaminated or stored improperly, it can spontaneously ignite. When it contacts metal surfaces or organic materials, it explodes. Soviet engineers knew this. The weapons had a documented history of accidents, but they remained in the Russian arsenal because replacing them was expensive. Budget cuts after the Soviet collapse meant that aging, dangerous weapons stayed in service. Maintenance was deferred. Safety protocols were ignored. On August 12, 2000, one of these torpedoes was being handled in the Kursk's torpedo room. The casing had corroded. A seal had failed. Hydrogen peroxide began leaking. When it contacted metal, it ignited. The first explosion tore through the torpedo room. The fire spread to other torpedoes nearby. Their warheads heated to detonation temperature. 135 seconds later, they exploded. An outdated weapon with a faulty seal brought down Russia's most advanced submarine. The cost. The investigation's conclusion was damning. Equipment failure caused by poor maintenance and cost-cutting measures. The disaster forced Russia to confront the decay of its military infrastructure. Families received compensation, some through lawsuits, others through settlements. But no money could replace what was lost. The Russian Navy purchased new rescue equipment. International cooperation agreements were signed. Protocols were established that included Russia in NATO rescue operations. Hydrogen peroxide torpedoes were finally retired from service. But the reforms came too late for the 118 men of the Kursk. Putin's government moved to control the narrative. Television networks that criticized the response faced pressure. Journalists who investigated too deeply encountered legal troubles. Yet families never stopped demanding truth. Nadezhda Tilik became an advocate, pressing for transparency and accountability. Today, a memorial stands in Vidyayevo. It features a section of the Kursk's conning tower, salvaged from the wreck. Plaques bear the names of every crew member who died. Families visit regularly. They leave flowers. They touch the cold metal. Dmitry Kolesnikov's widow, Olga, remarried years later, but she's spoken about the notes her husband left. He was thinking of us even in those final moments. He wanted us to know what happened. He wanted us to know he loved us. The Kursk's salvaged sections were eventually cut apart and recycled, but the lessons remain. Close. On the ocean floor of the Barents Sea, the bow section of the Kursk still rests where it sank, too radioactive to salvage, is left as an underwater grave. The Kursk was built to be indestructible, Russia's pride, a symbol of naval power. But on August 12, 2000, an outdated torpedo with a corroded seal brought it down in minutes. 118 men died. 23 survived the explosions only to perish in the darkness, writing final letters, waiting for rescue that arrived too late. The tragedy isn't just about equipment that failed or rescue that was delayed. It's about a government that lied to grieving families, about pride that prevented asking for help, about officials who valued secrecy over transparency. It's about the cost of neglect, about how the mightiest machines are only as reliable as their oldest, weakest component. And it's about 118 men who trusted their vessel, their equipment, their government. The Kursk's motto was, "The Kursk will complete any task in battle." The crew completed their final task. They waited, they hoped, they trusted. The system failed them. Now drop your thoughts about this in the comments below. Like and share this video with anyone who loves submarines. And don't forget to check out the other videos on our channel.